I said no, no to my dad's ultimatum, and now he's begging for forgiveness. We were at my sister's birthday dinner, same routine every year, lunch with mom, dinner with dad. But this time it was different. After the cake, Dad and his wife, Denise, pulled me aside. She barely spoke during dinner. Now I knew why. They had an offer. Denise would babysit my kids every other Saturday. A tremendous hassle, they said. But only if I let their son, Jake, come with us to France. Or we could babysit Jake every other Saturday. Their disappointment about the trip would vanish. I felt my stomach twist. I looked at them, and I said no to both options. It was the first time I didn't explain myself, no excuses, just no. Dad tried to end it there, but Denise started ranting about how tired she was, how horrible it felt to not rely on family. I waited for her to finish, then I told them not to contact me until they were ready to apologize. I grabbed my kids and left. Denise didn't have a meltdown, thankfully, but I felt the tension as we walked out. Later, my dad texted. He wanted to apologize. We ended up on a call. He admitted they were being unreasonable, but went through with it anyway. I asked if Jake knew about the trip. It had been bugging me. He said no. Denise wanted to tell Jake we were going to Disney without him, but Dad stopped her, said it was cruel and pointless. The call felt more like excuses than an apology. In the end, I told him I needed space. The way they treated me was unacceptable. My love for him and Jake was the only thing keeping me from cutting ties. I loathe how Denise and Jake treat me and my kids. I'm tired of bending over backwards. For them, for him. If patterns hold, I won't hear from them for a while. But I don't care. I muted Denise's contact. My husband and I are good. Back to planning the trip. Sam and Katie don't know anything happened, but I'll talk to them about Jake, my father, and Denise soon. This upset me more than it should have. I love my family, but I hate how used I am to their chaos. That's why I posted here in the first place. I can't believe I thought I was wrong for standing my ground. Cutting contact isn't what I want, but lowering it might be good for me. I've been reflecting on my life and my family, getting my thoughts in order before therapy. Writing this down helps. Thank you. Was I wrong for saying no? So after that call with my dad, things just felt off. My mind was racing with everything that had happened. I kept replaying the conversation in my head, questioning if I'd been too harsh. But deep down, I knew standing my ground was the right thing to do. A few days later, I was tidying up the house, trying to keep busy and keep my mind off the whole situation when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Denise. My heart skipped a beat. I hesitated for a second before opening it, wondering if it was another guilt trip or a rant about family obligations. But to my surprise, it was short and simple. I'm sorry. Can we talk? I showed the message to my husband and he just nodded, giving me a reassuring look. I decided to call her. She picked up almost immediately and I could hear the tension in her voice. She started by apologizing, saying she hadn't realized how much their demands had affected me. I appreciated her apology, but I also needed her to understand the boundaries I was setting. We talked for a while, and I was honest with her. I told her that while I care about her and Jake, my own family has to come first. She seemed to get it, at least for the moment. I felt a small weight lift off my shoulders. After the call, I sat down with my husband and we talked about everything. It felt good to have his support and to know we were on the same page. We shifted the conversation to lighter topics, like planning more details for our trip to France. It was nice to focus on something positive for a change. As the week went on, I found myself thinking less about the drama with my dad and Denise. I was more focused on my kids and making sure they were ready for the trip. I still hadn't had that talk with Sam and Katie about Jake, but I was planning on doing it soon. I wanted to make sure they understood the situation without burdening them with adult problems. I did hear from my dad again, just a brief text checking in, which was nice. It wasn't an apology, but it was a start. I figured we'd have to take things one step at a time. I was hopeful that maybe, just maybe, things could settle down a bit. My therapist appointment was coming up, and I was looking forward to it. I felt like I had so much to unpack and sort through. Writing everything down had helped, but talking it out with someone who could offer guidance would be even better. In the meantime, I was doing my best to focus on the positives. My family, our upcoming trip, and the small steps toward healthier boundaries with my dad and Denise. It was a work in progress, but it felt like I was moving in the right direction. As the days passed, I could feel a sense of clarity starting to settle in. It was like the fog that had clouded my mind was slowly lifting. I found myself more present with my kids, more engaged in our plans, and less caught up in the drama that had consumed me. I decided it was time to have that conversation with Sam and Katie about Jake. I sat them down one afternoon after school. I kept it simple, explaining that sometimes families have disagreements, but that everything was okay. I reassured them that the trip to France was still on, and that we were going to have the best time together. They seemed relieved, and their excitement about the trip was infectious. Meanwhile, my dad reached out again. This time, he suggested we meet for coffee, just the two of us. I agreed, cautiously optimistic, that maybe this was a step toward healing. When we met, he seemed more relaxed, and I could tell he was making an effort. We talked about neutral things at first: work, the kids, plans for the summer. Eventually, the conversation shifted to the recent tension. He admitted that he hadn't handled things well and that he was trying to understand my perspective. It wasn't a full-blown apology, but it was something. I could see he was trying, and that made a difference. We agreed to keep communication open, to try and be more understanding of each other's needs. It felt like progress, like maybe we could find a way to coexist without all the baggage. Back home, I felt lighter. I told my husband about the meeting, and he hugged me tight, saying he was proud of how I handled everything. We spent the evening with the kids, planning our itinerary for France, laughing and feeling like a weight had been lifted. As I lay in bed that night, I felt a sense of peace. The situation with my dad and Denise wasn't perfect, but it was improving. I was learning to set boundaries, and they were starting to respect them. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary for my own well-being. I know there's still a long way to go, but I'm okay with that. I'm focusing on what matters most: my family, our happiness, and the journey ahead. As I drifted off to sleep, one question lingered in my mind: can we really change old patterns? So after my chat with Denise, I felt like things were starting to shift. It wasn't perfect, but at least we were talking. I knew it wouldn't be an easy road, but having that conversation felt like a tiny step forward. Then, out of nowhere, my dad called again. I was a bit hesitant to pick up, but something told me to go for it. He sounded different, softer somehow. He brought up meeting again, maybe for lunch this time. I agreed, thinking it could be good to see him outside of all the family chaos. When we met, he surprised me by bringing an old photo album. As we flipped through the pages, he told stories from when I was a kid, moments I'd almost forgotten. It was bittersweet, reminding me of the good times we used to have. It made me see him not just as the source of my stress, but as the father who'd always been there in his own way. We talked more openly this time. He admitted feeling caught between trying to make everyone happy and not really knowing how. It was an honest moment, and I appreciated it. I shared how hard it's been balancing my own family's needs while trying to keep peace with him and Denise. It felt like a real conversation, not just a superficial exchange. After that lunch, things felt a bit better between us. It wasn't like everything was magically resolved, but I felt hopeful. It seemed like maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild some of what had been lost. Back at home, I tried to focus on the upcoming trip. My husband and I spent evenings mapping out our days in France, and it felt good to channel my energy into something positive. The kids were buzzing with excitement and their joy was contagious. It reminded me of what was most important. As the days passed, my relationship with my dad was slowly improving. We were texting more, sometimes just sharing small updates about our days. It was nothing major, but it felt like progress. I found myself reflecting less on the tension and more on the steps we were taking to move forward. I was learning to speak up for myself, to set boundaries without feeling guilty. It was empowering, and I could see the difference it was making in my interactions with my family. Finally, the day of our trip arrived. As we boarded the plane, I felt a mix of excitement and relief. It was a chance to focus solely on my family, to create new memories without the weight of past conflicts. As we took off, I glanced at my husband and kids, feeling grateful for this moment. Somewhere between the clouds and the horizon, I found myself wondering, is this the start of something new for all of us? Just when I thought things were settling down, life threw another curveball. A few days into our trip, I got a message from Denise. I was hesitant to open it, already bracing for some kind of drama, but curiosity got the better of me. To my surprise, it wasn't an angry rant or another demand. Instead, she said she wanted to talk. She wanted to understand why things had gotten so strained between us, and she admitted that maybe she hadn't been fair in how she treated me. I paused, staring at the screen, unsure if I should respond right away or let it sit, but something in her words felt genuine, like maybe she was ready to change too. I decided to reply, keeping it simple. I told her I appreciated her reaching out and that we could talk when I got back. It felt like another small step towards healing, and I hoped it was a sign that things could actually improve. The rest of the trip was a whirlwind of laughter and adventure. We visited castles, wandered through quaint villages, and ate way too many croissants. The kids were in awe of everything, and their excitement was infectious. I felt lighter than I had in a long time, like I was finally letting go of the weight I'd been carrying. When we returned home, I was ready to face whatever came next. Denise and I eventually sat down for coffee. It was awkward at first, but we managed to talk about the past few months and what had led to so much tension. We both agreed to try to understand each other better and to communicate more openly. It was a start, and for the first time, it felt like a real possibility. My dad and I continued to work on our relationship too. We kept meeting up, slowly building back a connection that had been frayed for too long. It wasn't perfect, but it was better. I was learning that change doesn't happen overnight, but with patience and effort, it's possible. Reflecting on everything, I realized that setting boundaries had been crucial, not just for me, but for everyone involved. It allowed us to approach each other with respect and understanding, instead of resentment and obligation. As I tucked the kids in one night, they were still buzzing from the trip, already asking when we could go back. I smiled, feeling grateful for the memories we'd made and the progress we'd achieved as a family. It wasn't always easy, but it was worth it. Lying in bed, I thought about how far we'd come. The journey wasn't over, but we were heading in the right direction. I felt a sense of peace, knowing I'd done what I could to protect my family and nurture the relationships that mattered most. And as I drifted off to sleep, one final thought lingered. Can we really change the way we love each other?